Front True Night Drive Horror Stories. Story 1. The Woman on the Overpass. I have been a truck driver for almost 20 years. I know the highways like the back of my hand. I have driven through storms, fog, and rain. I have seen accidents and animals crossing the road. I have seen drunk drivers swerve across lanes. I have seen people broken down on the side of the road. I have seen things that would make most people never want to drive again. But I keep driving, because nothing really scares me anymore. Or so I thought. Let me tell you what changed my mind. It was late one night, way past midnight. I was alone on the road, heading down a long, empty stretch of highway. Mile after mile of nothing but darkness. My headlights cut through the black like knives, but everything beyond them felt empty. Dead. I had been driving for hours without seeing another car or another person. Just me, my truck, and the endless road. The radio had stopped playing anything interesting miles ago, so I had switched it off. I needed the silence. I needed to focus on the road and nothing else. The route I was taking cut through an old part of the state. Not many people use this highway anymore. Most trucks took the interstate now, but I preferred the older roads. They were quieter. They had character. They reminded me why I loved this job in the first place. The freedom, the solitude, the open road stretching out forever in front of me. My coffee had gone cold about an hour ago. I had taken a sip from the thermos sitting on the seat next to me, expecting hot liquid, and got lukewarm brown water instead. I made a mental note to find a truck stop soon and brew some fresh coffee. My eyes were starting to get heavy. Not heavy enough to pull over and sleep, but heavy enough that I needed caffeine. I was passing mile marker 72 when I saw her. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But no, there she was, a woman standing on the overpass ahead. She was completely still, not moving, not waving, not pacing like someone does when they are waiting for help. Just standing there with her hands gripping the metal rail, looking down directly at me as I approached. My heart started to race. This made no sense. An overpass in the middle of nowhere in the dead of night, and there is a woman just standing there? Where was her car? Where did she come from? Had she been in an accident on the overpass? Was she waiting for help? Should I pull over? I slowed down. I was doing about 30 miles an hour now, crawling forward. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. The closer I got, the more details I could see. She was wearing a light blue dress. It looked old-fashioned, like something from decades ago. Her hair was long and dark, hanging straight down her back. Her face was pale, very pale, almost white in the darkness. Her eyes were looking directly at me. She never blinked. Even as my truck got closer, even as I passed directly under the overpass, she kept looking down at me, just staring. Her hands never left that rail. They stayed gripped around the metal like she was holding on for dear life. I passed under the overpass and looked up in my mirror. She was still there, still watching me, still not moving. The image of her face was burned into my mind. That pale and motionless face, those eyes that seemed to look right through me. I picked up speed. My hands were shaking. I told myself she was probably just someone who broke down and was waiting for help. I told myself this was logical. This made sense. But something felt wrong. Everything felt wrong. The silence in the cab of my truck seemed louder than any noise I had ever heard. My breathing sounded like thunder. My heart sounded like it was trying to escape from my chest. I could not get that image of her face out of my head. That blank stare, that grip on the metal rail. Then I saw it in my mirror. She was moving. She was walking, not toward the road, not waving at me, not trying to get my attention, toward the edge of the overpass, toward that spot where she would be directly over my truck as I continued down the highway. She moved like she was in a dream. Slow, careful, deliberate. One step, then another, then another. Her hands had left the rail and were hanging at her sides. My stomach dropped. I understood in that moment what she was about to do. I understood what was happening. I understood why she had been standing on that overpass in the middle of the night, staring down at my truck with those hollow eyes. I hit the accelerator. The truck roared forward. The engine screamed. I watched in my mirror as she reached the edge of the overpass. She was walking closer and closer to that spot, closer and closer to the edge. The light blue dress swayed as she moved. Her dark hair blew in a wind that I could not feel. She looked down one more time at my truck disappearing into the darkness. Our eyes met for just a fraction of a second. I saw something in her eyes then. Not anger, not sadness, not anything human at all. Just emptiness, just void, just the absence of everything that makes a person alive. Then she turned away from the edge and walked back toward the middle of the overpass. I never stopped. I never looked back again. I drove another 6 hours straight without stopping. My foot stayed on the accelerator. I pushed that truck as fast as it would go. 80 miles an hour, 85, 90, I did not care if I got a speeding ticket. I did not care about anything except getting as far away from that overpass as possible. When I finally reached the truck stop, my hands were still shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee. The waitress asked me if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just tired. She did not look convinced. I could see my reflection in the diner window. I looked like I had seen a ghost. Maybe I had. I sat in that diner for 3 hours. I did not sleep. I did not eat. I just drank coffee and stared at nothing. Around 6 in the morning, when the sun started to come up, I felt slightly better. In the daylight, things seemed more rational. Maybe it was someone waiting for a ride. Maybe her car had broken down on the overpass and she was waiting for a tow truck. Maybe my tired brain had imagined the rest of it, but I knew that was not true. I never took that road again. I added 2 hours to my drives if it meant avoiding mile marker 72. Other drivers thought I was crazy when I told them about it. Some laughed. Some said I was making it up. But a few drivers got quiet. A few drivers told me they had heard stories about that overpass. Stories about a woman in a light blue dress. Stories about seeing her standing on the rail. Stories about what happened if you did not drive fast enough. They told me the story. A woman had jumped from that overpass 15 years ago, hit a truck coming down the highway. The truck driver survived but was never the same. He quit driving after that. According to the legend, the woman came back. She came back every few years. She came back looking for another truck to stop, looking for another driver to be there at the moment of her death. Looking for a witness. I think about that woman all the time. I wonder who she was. I wonder why she chose that particular night. I wonder if she was real or if she was something else, something that exists between life and death, something that feeds on fear and witnesses. Most of all, I wonder what would have happened if I had not driven so fast that night, if I had slowed down more, if I had been going slower when I passed under that overpass. If I had been underneath when she jumped. I still drive trucks, but I do not sleep well anymore. And every time I pass an overpass at night, I check my mirrors. I check to see if anyone is standing there. And part of me is relieved when no one is there. And another part of me is terrified, because I have a feeling that one day I will look up in my mirror and I will see her again, the woman in the light blue dress, standing on the overpass, waiting, watching, looking directly at me. And next time, maybe my truck will not be fast enough. Story 2. The phantom lights. I was driving home from work one evening. It was around 10 p.m. and the road was pretty empty. It had been a long day. A really long day. My boss had kept me late, making me redo a project that should have been finished hours earlier. I was tired. I was frustrated. I just wanted to get home, sit on my couch, and not think about work for at least 12 hours. The drive home normally took about 30 minutes. It was a route I had driven hundreds of times. So many times that I could probably drive it with my eyes closed. Not that I would ever do that. That would be insane. But the point is, I knew this road. I knew every turn. I knew every street sign. I knew where the potholes were. This was my road. This was my drive. But tonight was different. Tonight, fog had rolled in, not just a little bit of fog. This was thick fog, the kind of fog that made you feel like you were driving through clouds. The visibility was terrible. I could barely see 50 feet ahead of me. My headlights cut through the fog like two bright beams trying to pierce through a wall, but the wall just kept closing back in. No matter how bright my lights were, the fog seemed to swallow the light and spit it back at me. I was doing about 30 miles per hour, moving slowly through the fog. Carefully, cautiously. I did not want to hit anything. I did not want to hit another car. I did not want to hit a person. I did not want to hit an animal. At this speed, in this fog, I could react quickly if something appeared in front of me. Or so I told myself. The radio was playing some late-night talk show. Some guy was talking about conspiracy theories, about things the government did not want us to know about secret military bases and technology that was decades ahead of what we could imagine. Normally, I would have changed the station, but tonight, something about it was keeping me company. Something about hearing another human voice made the drive through the fog feel less lonely, less empty. Then I saw it in my rearview mirror. Headlights. Another car was behind me, but they were far back. Far enough that I could see them clearly, but not so close that they seemed like a threat. I thought nothing of it. Another person heading home, just like me. Another person trying to navigate through this fog. We were both trying to get somewhere. We were both just trying to make it home safely. But then something changed. The lights started getting closer, very quickly, way too quickly for how slowly I was driving. I checked my speed again, still going 30, maybe even a little less. I had eased up on the accelerator because the fog was getting thicker, but the headlights behind me were getting closer and closer. It did not make sense. If they were going faster than me, they would pass me. Unless they wanted something else. Unless they were trying to do something else. The headlights behind me were enormous now. Almost blinding. Like someone had their high beams on at full power. I could not see the car itself. Just the lights. Two bright lights that filled my entire rearview mirror. They were so bright that I had to squint. They were so bright that they were painful to look at. My heart started to pound. What was this person doing? Were they trying to push me off the road? Were they trying to scare me? Were they angry about something? Had I cut them off somewhere earlier and not noticed? My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. My palms were getting sweaty. I could feel my pulse in my temples. I decided to pull over. I would let this maniac pass and get on with my drive. I steered to the right, toward the gravel shoulder. My tires crunched against the rocks as I came to a stop. The sound was loud in the silence of my car. I sat there, waiting. My engine was still running. My hands were still gripping the wheel. I waited for the car to pass by. I waited to see what kind of person would drive like that in this fog, this late at night. What kind of person would tailgate someone like that? What kind of person would be so aggressive? I thought about what I would do if this person stopped. Would I get out of my car? Would I lock the doors? Would I call the police? The headlights got brighter and brighter. I could see them filling my rearview mirror, filling my side mirrors. The light was coming from everywhere now. My entire car was bathed in white light. It was like being inside a spotlight. I could barely see anything else. The fog seemed to disappear. The road disappeared. Everything disappeared except those lights. Any second now they would pass. Any second now I would see the car. I would see what was behind those lights. Then, nothing. The lights just vanished. Not like the car drove past me. Not like the lights gradually faded into the distance. They just cut out. Gone. Like someone had turned them off completely. Like someone had flipped a switch and erased them from existence. I sat there on the shoulder for several minutes, my engine idling, my hands shaking. I looked in every mirror. Nothing, just darkness and fog. I looked to my left. Darkness and fog. I looked to my right. Darkness and fog. I looked behind my car. No car, no lights. No sign of anyone. Where had they gone? I was parked on the shoulder of the road. There was nowhere for them to go. They could not have turned around. They could not have turned onto a side road. I had not heard any sound. No engine. No tires squealing. Nothing. They had just disappeared. My hands were shaking badly now. I could barely hold the steering wheel. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might burst out of my chest. My breath was coming in short, shallow gasps. I forced myself to breathe slowly. I forced myself to think. What was happening? What had I just experienced? I sat there for almost 10 minutes. I did not move. I did not turn on the radio. I did not do anything except sit there and try to calm down. Eventually, my heart rate slowed down a little bit. Eventually, my breathing became more normal. Eventually, I felt like I might be okay. Then slowly, carefully, I pulled back onto the road. I did not accelerate quickly. I moved slowly, cautiously. I was hyper-aware of everything around me. I was listening for any sound. I was watching for any lights. I was checking my mirrors constantly. Every few seconds, my eyes would flick up to the rearview mirror. Every few seconds, I would look to see if those lights were coming back. I drove home with my doors locked. I made sure they were locked before I started driving. I checked them twice. 3 times. I drove with my windows up. I did not turn on the radio. I did not do anything except focus on the road in front of me and the mirrors all around me. When I finally got home, I sat in my car for another 5 minutes. I did not get out. I did not go inside. I just sat there in my driveway, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. I have never forgotten that night. It was over 10 years ago now. 10 years. And I still remember every detail. The fog, the lights, the way they just vanished, the way my heart felt like it was going to explode, the way my hands shook. The lights never came back. I drove that same route many more times after that night, and those lights never appeared again, but something had changed inside of me. Something had shifted. I was no longer comfortable driving through fog. I was no longer comfortable driving late at night. I was no longer comfortable being alone on a dark road. But I still wonder. I still think about them. I wonder what that car was. I wonder where it came from. I wonder where it went when it disappeared. I wonder if it was real, or if I imagined it. Some nights when I am driving through fog, I see headlights in my mirror, and my stomach drops, and I remember that night. I remember those impossible lights. I remember the fear, and I drive faster. I drive as fast as I can. And I do not look in my mirrors until I am absolutely sure those lights are not there. But there is always that moment of panic, that moment where I think maybe tonight is the night they come back. Maybe tonight is the night I pull over and the lights do not disappear. Maybe tonight is the night I find out what is behind those lights. And I am terrified of finding out the answer. Story 3. The 3 men on the road. I was driving late at night with my friends. We were coming back from a party in the city, heading back to our hometown. It was around 2 a.m. The night was dark. The kind of dark that feels heavy. The kind of dark that seems to have weight to it. Like it was pressing down on us from all sides. There were 4 of us in the car. Me driving, my friend Marcus in the passenger seat, my friend Armin in the back left, and my girlfriend Sarah in the back right. We had been at the city for the weekend. A big party at someone's apartment, music, lights, people. It had been fun, but now we were exhausted. Now we wanted to go home. The drive back to our hometown was about 2 hours. We had done it 100 times. 100 times, and nothing bad had ever happened. It was a boring drive. A straight drive. Nothing exciting, nothing scary. Just a drive, but Armin was nervous the whole drive. He was different from his normal self. He was quiet, withdrawn. He kept asking to stop at rest areas. He said he had a bad feeling. A really bad feeling. He told us stories he had heard about people disappearing on highways. Stories about strange creatures. Stories about evil spirits. Stories about people who had given rides to hitchhikers and were never seen again. I laughed at him. I told him these were just stories. Urban legends. The kind of thing people told to scare each other. I told him there was no such thing as ghosts or evil spirits. I told him to calm down. I told him he was being paranoid. I told him the lack of sleep was making him imagine things. Marcus agreed with me. He told Armin to stop freaking everyone out. He told Armin to go to sleep. He told Armin that nothing bad was going to happen. Sarah said nothing. She just sat quietly in the back seat, watching the darkness roll by outside her window. Armin tried to relax. He tried to sleep. But every time I looked in the rearview mirror, I could see his eyes were open. He was staring out the window. His hands were gripping the handle on the door like he was ready to jump out at any moment. We were driving down a quiet stretch of road, passing through some farmland. There were no other cars, no houses, no lights anywhere, just fields and darkness on both sides of the road. The road was flat and straight. It seemed to stretch on forever, like we were driving into infinity, like we would never reach the end. I had driven this road many times before, but tonight it felt different. Tonight it felt wrong. Tonight the darkness seemed thicker. The silence seemed louder. The emptiness seemed more empty. It was 2 a.m. It was the time when most people were sleeping. It was the time when the world felt abandoned. Like everyone except us had disappeared. Like we were the only people left alive. Then, out of nowhere, 3 men appeared walking along the side of the road. 1 second, there was nothing. The next second they were there, like they had materialized out of the darkness, like they had stepped out of another dimension. I did not see them approach. I did not see them walk into view. They were just suddenly there. I saw them for only a split second, but the image burned into my brain. It is still there. I can close my eyes right now and see them. It is 10 years later, and I can still see them as clearly as if it had happened yesterday. The one on the left was wearing a maroon cardigan. It was old and worn, the kind of thing someone might wear in the 1970s. The one in the middle had a yellow turban on his head. It was wrapped tightly around his head. The one on the right had a black shawl wrapped around his shoulders. It hung down to his waist. They were all facing the same direction, walking along the edge of the road like they were heading somewhere. like they had a destination, like they knew where they were going. But here is what made our blood go cold. They were walking on a road with no sidewalk, no path, no civilization for miles. It was 2 a.m. There were no houses nearby. There were no cars. There was nothing. Why would these three men be walking here? Where could they possibly be going? Who walks on the side of a highway in the middle of the night in the middle of nowhere? No one. No one does that. No one walks like that unless something is very wrong. Armand started screaming. He was pointing out the window and yelling. He was saying their names. Or not their names. He was just screaming. His voice was high and filled with terror. The kind of terror that comes from deep inside. The kind of terror that you cannot fake. He wanted us to speed up. He wanted us to get away from those men. His entire body was trembling. His face was pale. His eyes were wide. Marcus turned around to look. Sarah looked. I looked in the mirror. I sped up. I pressed my foot down on the accelerator. The car surged forward. The engine roared. As we passed the three men, I looked at their faces. I wish I had not. I wish I had kept my eyes on the road. I wish I had not looked. Their faces were wrong. Not deformed or ugly, just wrong. Like something was off about them. Like they were not quite right. Their eyes seemed to follow our car as we passed. Even though we were moving. Even though we were moving fast, it felt like those three sets of eyes were tracking us, watching us, seeing us. The eyes on the left man were too far apart. The eyes on the middle man were the wrong color. Not a normal color. A color that did not exist in nature. The eyes on the right man did not blink. He just stared. Their mouths did not move. Their bodies did not react to our car passing by. They just kept walking, like they had not even seen us, like we were invisible to them. But their eyes followed us. I felt it. We all felt it. We did not stop. We did not slow down. We drove all the way home without speaking a word. The car was silent except for Armand's heavy breathing. He had stopped screaming, but he was breathing hard. His breath was coming in short, sharp gasps. No one turned on the radio. No one said anything. We just drove. For the next hour and a half, we just drove, and we did not speak. When we got back to our hometown, I dropped everyone off. Armand lived the farthest away. When I pulled up to his house, he refused to get out of the car. He kept saying he would walk. He kept saying he could not stay in the car anymore. But his hands were shaking so badly that he could barely grab the door handle. Finally, he got out. He walked to his front door without looking back. He did not wave. He did not say goodbye. He just went inside. I did not see Armand for 3 days after that. When he finally called me, his voice was different. It was quiet, scared. He told me he had not slept. He told me he kept seeing those three men in his head. He told me he was having nightmares about them. The next day, I tried to tell myself it was just the dark playing tricks on us. It was just the late hour and our tired brains. It was just shadows in our imagination. We were exhausted. We were driving in the dark. Of course we saw something strange. Of course our minds played tricks on us, but I knew what I saw. And Armand knew what he saw. And Marcus knew what he saw. And Sarah knew what she saw. Armand will not drive that road anymore. He takes a different route now. It adds an hour to his drive. But he will not take the old road. He says those three men were waiting for us. He says if we had stopped, if we had talked to them, if we had rolled down the window, something very bad would have happened. I asked him what he thought would have happened. He would not tell me. He just shook his head and said he did not want to think about it. I have never told anyone this story before, but every time I drive that road, I look for those three men. I drive slowly. I watch the sides of the road carefully. And I look, sometimes I see people walking on the side of the road at night. People in strange clothes. People who do not seem to belong. And my heart rate spikes, and I check if they are the three men. and part of me is relieved when they are not there. And another part of me is terrified, because I know they are still out there, somewhere on that road, waiting for someone to stop, waiting for someone to talk to them, waiting for someone to make a different choice than we did. And I wonder what they would have done if we had stopped. I wonder what they would have said. I wonder if we would have made it home that night. I wonder if we would have made it home at all. Story 4. The strange visitor at the truck stop. I was a truck driver working the night shift. I had been doing this job for almost 12 years. It was not glamorous. It was not exciting. But it paid the bills. It paid for my house. It paid for my car. It paid for my life. The job involved meeting another driver halfway to a destination, switching trailers and then driving back home. It was a simple system. 2 drivers would meet at the same location, switch their loads, and head in opposite directions. This way, neither driver had to make the full trip. We would share the work. We would share the time on the road. We would meet in a dark dirt parking lot at around 3 a.m. It was always the same place, always the same time. Mile marker 84 just off the highway. There was nothing around it. No buildings, no houses, no lights, just a dirt lot in the middle of nowhere. The company had been using this location for years. Truckers would meet there to switch trailers. It was convenient. It was efficient. It was isolated. I had made this run hundreds of times, maybe more than 1,000 times. I knew that parking lot better than I knew my own backyard. I knew every pothole. I knew every rock. I knew where the best spot to park was. I knew which direction the wind usually came from. I knew everything about that place. On this particular night, I arrived early. The other driver would not be there for almost an hour. I had made good time. The roads had been clear. There had been no traffic. I had pushed the speed limit and made up time. Now I was sitting in the parking lot with nothing to do but wait. It was a dark night. The parking lot was completely empty. No other trucks. No other cars. Just me in the darkness. There were no lights in the parking lot. No street lights. No security lights. Just the stars above and the darkness below. My headlights were off. My engine was off. I was just sitting there waiting. I had been driving for 14 hours straight. My body was exhausted. My mind was tired. My eyes were heavy. I needed sleep. Just a little bit of sleep. Just enough to recharge my batteries before the long drive back home. I decided to take a short nap. I stretched out across my seat. The cab of the truck was small, but I had gotten used to sleeping in tight spaces. I had become an expert at contorting my body into uncomfortable positions and sleeping soundly anyway. I closed my eyes and tried to relax. The darkness was peaceful. The silence was soothing. There was nothing but me and the quiet night. I felt my body starting to relax. I felt my muscles loosening up. I felt sleep starting to come. About 10 minutes later, I heard a sound. A dog barking. It was distant at first, far away, but it was definitely a dog. I could hear it clearly. It was barking in short bursts. Woof, woof, woof. At first, I ignored it. There were farms around here. Farms had dogs. It was not unusual to hear a dog barking in the middle of the night in this area. It was probably just some farmer's dog. It probably was not going to bother me. But the barking continued. It got louder and louder. It was not getting quieter. It was getting closer. The dog was moving toward the parking lot. The dog was getting nearer and nearer. I tried to ignore it. I just wanted to sleep. But the barking went on for several minutes. It did not stop. It kept getting closer and closer. The barking was loud now. Really loud. It was right outside my truck. It was right there, just on the other side of the metal walls. Finally, I sat up. I could not sleep through this. The barking was too loud. The dog was too close. I needed to see what was going on. I looked out my window. Standing there just inches away on the other side of the glass was a man. He was about 35 years old, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. It was hard to tell in the darkness. He was just standing there staring at me through the window. His face was right up against the glass. His eyes were looking directly into my eyes. He was not moving. He was not saying anything. He was just standing there, watching me, staring at me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. My heart stopped. There was no dog. There had been no dog. Just this man standing in the darkness outside my truck. Just this man making barking sounds like an animal, like a creature, like something that was not human. The barking had stopped the moment I looked out the window. The moment I had gotten up and looked at him. The moment I had acknowledged his presence. That is when the barking stopped. I have no idea how long he had been standing there. I have no idea how much of my nap he had watched. I have no idea why there was no dog. The barking had seemed so real. It had sounded so authentic. But it had been coming from this man. This man had been making the sounds. We stared at each other for several seconds. I could not move. I could not breathe. I could not do anything except stare back at him. His face was expressionless. His eyes were empty, like there was nothing behind them, like there was no person in there. Like I was looking at a shell that looked human but was not. I tried to open the door. I do not know why. I think I was in shock. I think my body was moving on instinct. I do not know what I was going to do. Maybe I was going to run. Maybe I was going to confront him. I do not know, but the door would not open. It was locked. I had not locked it. I had not touched the locks. But it was locked anyway. It was like the door knew something I did not know. It was like the door was protecting me. Then, without saying anything, he turned and walked away into the darkness. He did not run. He did not hurry. He just turned his body and walked. Slowly. Calmly. Like he had not just been standing outside my truck. Like he had not just been barking at me like a dog. I watched him go. I watched until he disappeared completely into the black night. He did not look back. He just walked away and vanished. I sat there in shock for several minutes. I could not process what had just happened. I could not make sense of it. What had I just seen? Who was that man? Why had he been barking? Why had he been standing outside my window? What did he want? I locked my doors. All of them. The driver's side door. The passenger side door. The sliding window at the back of the cab. Every lock I could lock, I locked. I did not care if I had locked them already. I locked them again. And again. I made sure they were secure. Then I moved the truck. I turned on the engine and drove to a different part of the parking lot, far away from where I had been, as far as possible while still staying in the parking lot. I parked under a streetlight that I had not remembered seeing before. Where had that light come from? It had not been there earlier. But it was there now, and it was bright, and it made me feel slightly less alone. I waited for the other driver to arrive. I watched the entrance to the parking lot. I watched every shadow. I watched every movement. My hands were shaking. My heart was still pounding. When the other driver got there, I did not tell him what happened. I did not mention the man. I did not mention the barking. I just switched the trailers and drove away. I left that parking lot as fast as I could. I stopped doing that run after a few weeks. I told my company I did not feel safe meeting in that location anymore. I told them I wanted a different route. They did not ask me questions. They did not ask me why. They did not ask me what had happened. They just gave me a different route. They reassigned me to a safer location. I have driven trucks for many years since then. I have seen many strange things on the road. I have seen accidents. I have seen animals that should not have been on the highway. I have seen things that I cannot explain. But I have never forgotten that man. The one who was barking like a dog. The one who was standing outside my window in the dark. The one who was waiting for me to wake up. The one who had nothing behind his eyes. The one who had turned and walked away into the darkness and disappeared completely. I have never gone back to that parking lot. I have never taken that route again. I have never even driven past that location if I could help it. And I never will, because I know he is still there, in that dark parking lot, at around 3 a.m., waiting for a truck driver to arrive early, waiting for a tired driver to try to sleep, waiting to press his face against the window and stare at them while he barks like a dog. I know he is still there, and I hope I never meet him again. But sometimes on the darkest nights when I am driving through empty areas, I hear a dog barking in the distance, and my stomach drops, and I remember, and I wonder if that man is following me. I wonder if he is still out there. I wonder when I will hear him bark again. Story 5. The winged darkness. I was working the night shift at a gas station on a small highway. The kind of highway that not many people used anymore. The kind of place where time seemed to move differently. Where the hours dragged on slowly. Where you could go entire nights without seeing more than a handful of customers. I had been working at this gas station for about 5 years. It was not a glamorous job. I made minimum wage plus a small commission if I sold enough lottery tickets and coffee. But the job was stable. The job was quiet. The job was mine. I knew every corner of that building. I knew which pumps worked and which ones gave customers problems. I knew which candy bars sold the most. I knew which coffee flavor people ordered most often. The location was isolated. That was part of why I took the job. I liked being alone. I liked the quiet. I liked working when the rest of the world was sleeping. There was something peaceful about it. Something zen about taking care of a small place in the middle of the night while everyone else was home in their beds. But that was before the night that changed everything. It was around midnight when a truck pulled up to the pumps. This was not unusual. Trucks came by regularly. Truckers needed gas. Truckers needed coffee. Truckers needed to stretch their legs. This was just another truck on another night. The driver came inside looking pale and shaken. His face was white. His hands were trembling slightly. He was not moving like a normal person. He was moving like someone who had just been through something traumatic. I asked him if he was okay.
He did not answer me.
He just ordered coffee, a large black coffee. His hands were shaking so badly that some of the coffee spilled as he lifted the cup to his lips. He paid me without saying a word. He did not make eye contact. He just looked past me, like I was not even there, like he was looking at something behind me. Something I could not see. He left the gas station and got back in his truck. He drove away without pumping any gas. He had only come in for coffee. Or maybe he had come in to escape something. Maybe he had come inside because he needed to get away from whatever was outside. After he left, I went outside to check on things, to see if everything was okay. That is when I saw it. On the front of the gas station box, there were marks in the dirt and grime. Wing prints. They were huge, 6 feet across, maybe more. I had never seen anything like it. They were enormous, massive. Like something with wings the size of a small airplane had landed on my gas station and rested there. But these were not feathery bird wings. I could see that clearly. Bird wings would have left soft, delicate marks. These marks were different. These were heavy. These were powerful. These looked like the wings of something large, something strong, something that weighed a lot. The marks looked like bat wings, like the wings of something big, something that should not exist. The markings were impressed into the grime on the gas station box. They were clear. They were unmistakable. Something with massive bat-like wings had been here. I stood there for a long time just staring at those wing prints. I felt cold, really cold, even though it was a warm night. Even though the air should have been warm. I felt a chill run down my spine. I called the police. I told them what I had found. They came and looked at the prints. They looked confused. They told me it was probably a large bird, a very large bird, maybe an owl, maybe an eagle, maybe something that had escaped from a zoo. But I knew what I was seeing. These were not bird wings. These were something else. Over the next few days, I started researching. I spent my breaks on the internet looking up strange creatures. I looked at pictures of eagles. I looked at pictures of owls. Nothing matched. Nothing looked right. Then I found a reference to something called Mothman, an old legend from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, a creature that had been seen in the 1960s, a winged creature with red eyes, a creature that appeared before disasters, a creature that haunted the night. The descriptions matched what I was seeing. The wing prints were the right size. The behavior was the same. A creature that was attracted to lights, a creature that left marks on buildings, a creature that appeared in the night and disappeared without explanation. I showed pictures of the wing prints to some of the truckers who came by. I asked them if they had ever heard of anything like this. I asked them if they had ever seen anything similar. One of the truckers looked at the pictures and his face went white. He told me he had heard stories. Stories about a creature that lived in the desert. Stories about something with wings. Something that hunted at night. Something that was not supposed to exist. He told me other truckers had reported seeing things, seeing shadows in the night, seeing something flying alongside their trucks, seeing creatures with wings that should not be able to fly, something that was fast, something that was dangerous, something that seemed almost intelligent. Another trucker told me about the sightings. He said there had been over 100 reports in some areas, drivers seeing the same creature in different places, all describing the same thing. A humanoid shape, wings that spanned 10 or 12 feet, red eyes that glowed in the darkness, a creature that moved silently, a creature that seemed to be watching. He said if you see it, do not look at it, do not acknowledge it. If you ignore it, maybe it will ignore you. But if you acknowledge it, if you let it know you have seen it, then maybe it will come for you. I did not know if I believed this. I did not know if this was real. But I knew what I had seen on my building. Those wing prints were real. Those wing prints did not lie. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing other things. Strange marks on the roof, scratches on the walls. Like something had been clawing at the building. Like something had been trying to get inside. One night, a customer told me he had seen something. A dark shape flying above the gas station. Something large. Something with wings. He had only seen it for a second. But he had seen it. I started staying alert. I started locking the doors earlier. I started keeping the lights on all night long. I did not feel safe anymore. The gas station did not feel like a safe place anymore. The wing prints stayed on the building for weeks. Even after I washed them away, even after I cleaned the grime, they seemed to come back, like something was making those prints again, like something was coming back to the gas station, like something was waiting for me. I still work at that gas station. I still see those marks sometimes on the building. They appear without explanation. They disappear without explanation, and I still wonder what kind of creature leaves wing prints 6 feet across, and I still wonder what kind of creature seems to be waiting for something. I have learned not to ask questions. I have learned not to acknowledge what I have seen. I have learned to keep working, to keep going, to keep ignoring the signs. But on the darkest nights when business is slow, I stand at the window and I watch the sky. I watch for shadows moving in the darkness. I watch for wings spread against the stars. I watch for red eyes watching back at me. And I remember that truck driver, the one who came in pale and shaking. The one who looked at something behind me. The one who knew. The one who had seen it, and I wonder if that is what he was looking at. I wonder if that is why he was so afraid. I wonder if the creature was standing right there, right behind me, right in my gas station, watching, always watching. And I wonder what would have happened if I had turned around to see what he was seeing. I wonder if I would still be here to tell this story.
Story 6. The Detour That Saved My Life. I was driving home late at night with my 2 young children in the back seat. My daughter was 7 years old. My son was 5. They were both fast asleep, their heads tilted to the sides, their breathing slow and steady. The kind of sleep that only children can sleep. Deep, peaceful, uninterrupted. It was past midnight, way past midnight. It was almost 1 a.m. I had been to my parents' house for dinner. My mother had insisted we stay for dessert, then coffee, then more talking. By the time we left, it was late, really late. The kids had fallen asleep in their car seats before we even made it out of my parents' driveway. I was tired, so tired. My eyes were heavy. My body was aching. I had been working long hours all week. I had barely slept. All I wanted to do was get home and collapse into bed. I just wanted to get home. But the drive was about an hour long, an hour of staying awake, an hour of keeping my eyes on the road, an hour of fighting the exhaustion that was trying to pull me under. I pulled over to the side of the road for a moment to collect myself. I needed to be alert. I needed to focus. I could not drive if I was this tired. It was not safe. It was not fair to my children. I needed to wake up. I needed to refresh. I pulled into a small rest area. It was empty. There were no other cars, no other people, just me and my sleeping children. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment. I rubbed my face. I rubbed my eyes. I tried to shake off the fatigue. I had been sitting there for maybe 3 minutes when a car pulled up beside me. I had not heard it arrive. I had not seen it coming. It was just suddenly there, parked right next to my car. A couple was in the front seats. They were probably in their 40s. They looked normal enough. The man had dark hair. The woman had blonde hair. They both looked concerned. They both looked worried. They rolled down their window. I rolled down mine. They told me there had been a terrible accident over the next hill. A really bad accident. Multiple cars. Traffic was completely stopped, they said. Traffic was backed up for miles. It would take me at least 2 hours to get through it. But they had found an alternate route. A side road. A detour. They told me about it. They told me it was a shortcut. They told me it would let me avoid all the traffic and get home faster. They seemed like they were trying to help. They seemed genuinely concerned about me, about my situation. I could see my children sleeping in the back seat. I could see their peaceful faces. I could see them trusting me to get them home safely. 2 hours of sitting in traffic. 2 hours of waiting. 2 hours of them possibly waking up and getting upset. I thanked them for the information. They seemed nice enough. They seemed helpful. Their concern seemed genuine. They seemed like good people who had encountered a problem and found a solution, and wanted to share that solution with a stranger. But something inside me said no. I cannot explain it. I do not know how to describe it. It was like a voice in my head. It was like an instinct. It was like something deep inside me was saying, do not go that way. Do not follow their advice. Do not take that road. I was from the country. I had grown up in rural areas. I knew these roads. I knew this route well. I knew the main highway. I knew the side roads. I knew which roads went where. I had driven these roads 1,000 times, but I did not know that detour. I had never heard of it. I had never taken it. I had never even seen it. I did not want to take a road I was not familiar with. Not at this time of night. Not with my children asleep in the back of my car. Not when I was already tired and exhausted. Not when I would be driving in the darkness with no idea where I was going. Something felt off. I could not put my finger on it. But something was not right. So I told them I would just wait. I told them I would just sit in traffic. I told them it would be fine. I told them I did not mind waiting. I told them I would prefer to stay on the main road. They looked disappointed. They looked almost sad, like I had rejected their help, like I had insulted them somehow. They drove away. I watched them leave. As they left, I watched them take that detour road. I watched them turn onto the side road. I watched them pull over a little way down the side road and get out of their car. I could see the trees. The side road went into the woods. There was nothing but woods all around. Nothing but darkness. Nothing but empty forest on both sides of the road. They got out of their car and stood on the side of the road, just standing there, looking back the way they had come, looking at the main highway, looking at where I was parked. I did not like the way they were looking at me. I did not like their expressions. Something had changed. Their concerned faces had become something else, something darker. I locked my car doors. I turned my key in the ignition. I started the engine. I sat there for a few minutes, then decided to drive forward. Maybe there really was an accident. Maybe I should check it out. Maybe the couple had been telling the truth. Maybe I was being paranoid. I drove slowly. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. I looked for traffic. I looked for signs of an accident. There was no accident. The road was clear. There were no cars. There was no backup. A few miles up, I was driving fine. No backup. No cars pulled over. Nothing. Just empty roads stretching out in front of me. Whatever had happened to them. Whatever they had seen. I did not know. But there was no accident on this road. I made it home safely. I carefully carried my children inside. I put them in their beds. I tucked them in and made sure they were safe. Then I collapsed into my own bed, but I could not sleep. I kept thinking about that couple. I kept thinking about their expressions. I kept thinking about what would have happened if I had followed their advice. The next morning, I drove that same route to go home. It was daytime now. The sun was up. The world looked different, safer, brighter. I wanted to see that detour road in the daylight. I wanted to understand why the couple had tried to send me that way. I wanted to see it when I could actually see. As I approached the area where I had pulled over the night before, I started looking for the side road. I looked for the detour that the couple had mentioned. I looked for the road that went into the woods, then I saw it. A big sign at the entrance. Dead end. My heart stopped. It was a dead end. The couple had tried to send me down a dead-end road in the middle of the night, in a car full of sleeping children, to a place where they had gotten out and stopped, to a place where the road ended, to a place where there was nothing but woods on all sides. I pulled over near the dead-end sign. I looked down the road. I could see where the road twisted into the trees. I could see that it was dark even in the daytime. I could see that there were no other roads branching off. No houses. No signs of civilization. Just the road and the woods. I turned my car around and drove away from that place as fast as I could. I have no idea what they wanted. I have no idea what would have happened if I had followed their advice. I have no idea what they were planning to do. I have no idea if they were looking for a car, looking for children, looking for someone to victimize, looking for something else entirely. But I know I made the right choice that night. 15 years later, I still get chills thinking about it. I still have nightmares sometimes. I dream about that dead-end road. I dream about what might have happened if I had taken that detour. I dream about my children disappearing into the darkness. I have never gone back to that area. I have taken a different route home ever since. It adds 20 minutes to my drive, but I will never take that road again. I will never go near that detour again. I have told my children about that night. Now that they are older, I have told them what happened. I have told them how important it is to trust your instincts. I have told them that sometimes your gut tells you something is wrong before your brain understands why. My daughter, now 22 years old, still thanks me for listening to that voice. She thanks me for not following the couple. She thanks me for making the choice that saved her life. Because I know, without a doubt, that if I had taken that detour that night, my children and I would not have made it home. I do not know what was waiting for us on that dead-end road. I do not know what that couple was planning. I do not know what would have happened when the road ended and there was nowhere left to drive. But I am grateful every single day that I will never find out. Some nights I think about that couple. I wonder if they are still out there. I wonder if they tried the same thing with other people. I wonder how many people ignored that voice. How many people ignored their instincts. How many people turned down that dead-end road. And I wonder if those people ever made it home. I think about it. And I am grateful. So grateful. That I listened to that voice inside me that said no. That voice saved my life. That voice saved my children's lives. And I will never forget it. Story 7, The Shadowrunners. I was a pizza delivery driver. The shifts were long. I would work until midnight when the store closed, then drive home. It was around 11 p.m. when I set out for home one night. The route took me through the desert, flat empty land stretching for miles. There were no lights, no other cars, just my truck and the darkness. I had been driving like this for hours, 12 hours to be exact. I was exhausted. My eyes were heavy, but I had to keep going. I had to get home. As I drove through the empty desert night, I started to see things. Out of the corners of my eyes, I could see shadowy figures running alongside my truck, sometimes on 2 legs, sometimes on 4 legs, running through the darkness, keeping pace with my vehicle. I knew I was probably just hallucinating from tiredness. I knew it was probably not real, but I could not shake the feeling that something was out there with me. I had read stories online about things that live in the desert, things that hunt at night, things that are not supposed to exist. I had read Asian ghost stories about spirits that cannot hurt you if you do not acknowledge them, if you do not look at them directly. So I made a choice. I would not look at the shadows. I would not look to the sides. I would keep my eyes on the road. I would not acknowledge what was running alongside me. My eyes stayed glued to the road ahead. I refused to let them flicker to the sides. I refused to look at what was keeping pace with my truck. Hour after hour I drove like this. The shadows never stopped. They kept running. They kept pace. But I never looked at them. I never acknowledged them. And slowly, as the sun started to rise and the desert began to light up, the shadows faded away. I never saw them again on that stretch of road, but I remember every detail. The feeling of eyes watching me. The feeling of something running alongside my truck in the darkness. the overwhelming terror of knowing something was out there and being completely unable to look at it. To this day, I do not drive through the desert at night. I take the longer route that goes through towns and cities. It takes 3 hours longer, but I will never forget those shadow runners, and I will never take that risk again.